بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد إخوة الإسلام يا عباد الله. This is a response video to a YouTube video titled we apologize to the Salafis, or I apologize to the Salafis, or something to this effect. And it was done by an Ash'ari Deobandi who claims to be apologizing to Ahlul Sunnah for attributing to them falsely, incorrect beliefs. That being that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala sits on the throne. And in the midst of his apology, he tries to legitimize why he lied on Ahlul Sunnah. He tries to legitimize it by lying on two of the scholars of the past. One, Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, and two, Shaykh Muhammad Ibn Salih al-Uthaymin. And the deceptive manner in which he attributed these statements to these two shows the disingenuousness of this individual, and that obviously he's concerned with defending his hizb and not the truth, because if he was concerned about the truth, then he would not misrepresent anyone in his quest to try to defend the falsehood that he's upon. And this shows you the difference as it relates to the contemporary Ash'ari and their predecessors of ancient times, because the predecessors of ancient times didn't fall into this type of deception and this type of trickery that this individual has fell into. And so first I want to begin with how he misrepresented Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. So he claims that Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah from his Majmu'at al-Fatawa stated that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala sits on the throne. And he says, see, this is illustrating his belief in that regard. However, what he doesn't inform you of is the context in which Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah made the statement. Actually, Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah was quoting a hadith, a weak hadith that's collected by Abu Dawood in his Sunan. And his hadith 4,726. And the reason why Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah was quoting this particular narration was because he was having a discussion concerning why some scholars prior to him of the past that were before him fell into incorrect beliefs and stances. And he was stating that was on account of them either believing that a weak hadith was authentic, and so what came in that weak hadith was the understanding that they held, or they relied on an authentic hadith that they misunderstood. This was the context in which Shaykh al-Islam made that statement. And to illustrate that, then we'll go back one page prior to him making that statement and just translate what he said to give you a context of the discussion that he's having. So he stated, وَطَائِفَةٌ مِمَّنْ يَقُولُ بِأَنَّهُ رَأَى رَبَّهُ بِعَيْنِهِ. And there is a group from those who state that indeed he saw his Lord with his eyes, meaning the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This group, they pass the ruling of disbeliever upon whomsoever opposes them, on account that they believed or assumed that it was reported, أنه قد جاء في ذلك أحاديث صحيحة, and that's because they assumed that that was reported in authentic narrations, like what Abul Hasan Ali ibn Shukr did. For indeed, he was quick in passing the ruling of takfir upon whoever opposed him and whatsoever he alleged to be from the Sunnah. Oftentimes, he was mistaken in that regard. he was mistaken in that regard either because or due to him using as a proof a weak hadith or an authentic hadith لكن لا تدل على مقصوده, or he was relying on an authentic hadith, but that authentic hadith did not indicate what he intended. So this is the discussion that Shaykh al-Islam is having, and after that he starts coming with examples, either examples of a'imma who fell into that issue, or examples of weak hadith that cause a'imma to have a misunderstanding in a particular affair. Until he gets to the point where he says, وَمِن ذَلِكَ, and from that, the examples, he states, is the hadith of Abdullah ibn Khalifa al-Mashhur, is the well-known hadith of Abdullah ibn Khalifa, who narrated from Umar, ibn al-Khattab, and Umar narrated from the Prophet ﷺ. And it was also collected by Abu Abdullah Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahid al-Maqdisi in Mukhtar. And he continues, however, a group from amongst the people of Hadith rejected it due to its idtirab, which is a technical term in the science of Hadith. Just like Abu Bakr al-Ismaili did, he rejected it. And Ibn al-Jawzi, he rejected this particular hadith that's yet to be quoted, but he rejected it. لكن أكثر أهل السنة قبلوه. However, the majority of Ahl Sunnah accepted it. So now he's still referring to the hadith, of Abdullah ibn Khalifa. And now, this is what he was referring to. So he's giving you a discussion of some people accepted it, some people rejected it. And now he says, وَفِيهِ, he being what? وَفِيهِ, and within it, within this hadith, قَالَ, he said, the Prophet ﷺ. And this is when this individual quotes. This is where he quotes from the Majmu'ah, this Deobandi, this deceptive Deobandi. Undoubtedly, the throne and the courtesy, his throne and courtesy, Allah's, extends over the heavens and the earth. وَإِنَّهُ يَجْلِسْ عَلَيْهِ, and he sits on it. So this is a weak hadith that Ibn Taymiyyah is quoting within the context of a discussion that he's having. However, this disingenuous individual goes and says that this is the belief of Ibn Taymiyyah. And we know this is not the belief of Ibn Taymiyyah because his statements in this regard are in abundance. But when you look at the context of this, you see that Ibn Taymiyyah didn't quote this affirming this to be true. He was using this as an example of how people have imams of the past had incorrect stances. And this is from the deception of this individual to present a quote like this outside of its context, all in defense of his hizb, and their attacks against the people of the Sunnah. So that's the first illustration of his deception. Then the second illustration of his deception is what he falsely attributes or misrepresents of the statement of Sheikh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymin within that video. And this is in reference to a question Sheikh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymin was asked about Uthman al-Darimi, how he interpreted al-istiwa, and I'm translating al-istiwa as ascension, right? But al-istiwa, how in the Arabic language, it has the meaning, or could come with the meaning of sitting. So, Sheikh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymin, and I took the liberty of pre-translating, he says, al-istiwa over a thing within the language does come in the meaning of sitting. Now I'm going to read what this individual quoted, and I'm going to mention when he stopped, because he stops quoting Sheikh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymin. Why? Because it serves his purpose of trying to misrepresent the Sheikh. So again, al-istiwa over a thing within the language does come in the meaning of sitting. As Allah the Exalted said, وَجَعَلَ لَكُم مِّنَ الْفُلْكِ وَالْأَنْعَامِ مَا تَرْكَبُونَ لِتَسْتَوُوا عَلَى ظُهُورِهِ, which means in English language, and he has made for you ships and cattle, that which you ride and or mount, in order for you to mount yourselves on their backs. Continuing with the statement of Sheikh Al-Uthaymin, the person on the back of a riding beast, is he sitting or standing? And this is the question that Sheikh Uthaymin poses. And then he answers it. He's sitting. However, is it correct to attribute it to Allah's istiwa or ascension over the throne? هذا محل النظر. This is a debatable point. This is a debatable point. This is what Sheikh Uthaymin states. And then he continues, if it is factually established that the Salaf interpreted it with sitting, then they are more knowledgeable than us in that regard. This is where this individual stops quoting Sheikh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymin. Why? Because it serves the purpose of misrepresenting the Sheikh. Because now he tries to state, see, this is what Uthaymin believes. And if he believed otherwise, then he would have negated this clearly. Yani insinuating that Sheikh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymin didn't negate this. However, when looking at what Sheikh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymin is stating here, he's basically giving the people the guidelines of how they should be practicing Islam in this portion of his fatwa. He's stating, look, if this was something that the Salaf understood, then there is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If they understood it like this, we understand it the same way. That's basically what he was saying there at that portion. He was giving a lesson to the listeners of how to approach things. But Sheikh Muhammad ibn Salih didn't stop there. He continued in his explanation. This is that which this individual omitted. He totally omitted what's about to come next. And this shows the disingenuousness of this individual. Because Sheikh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymin, he states, now I'm going to reread the last part. If it is factually established that the Salaf interpreted it with sitting, then they are more knowledgeable than us in that regard. Otherwise, it is debatable, and we say the mode and or manner of istiwa is unknown. And from the general perspective of ignorance is that we don't know if he's sitting or not. However, we say the meaning of istiwa is al-ulu. Al-ulu is like a state of being high or elevated or above. This is what he's saying al-istiwa means. Yani it means al-ulu. Yani ma'na al-istiwa al-ulu. هذا أمر لا شك فيه. And this is an affair in which there is no doubt. This is an affair in which there is no doubt. And he continues, يعني استوى على العرش يعني على علو خاصا. So now he uses the verb form. يعني استوى, يعني to raise. The istawa over the throne means ala uluwin khasan. It means he ascended, yani with a particular ascension, outside of the general state of being elevated over all of the creation. يعني على علو خاصا غير العلو العام الذي على جميع المخلوقات. This is what Sheikh Muhammad ibn Salih al Uthaymin stated. This illustrates his belief. That he believed that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala was intended by istiwa was al-ulu, being elevated, being above. And he negated a mode and or manner to that. He clearly stated, yani al-istiwa majhul. The istiwa, kayfiyatul istiwa, afwan, kayfiyatul istiwa majhul. The mode or manner as to how he ascended is unknown. But the fact that he ascended or rose over the throne, that is known. That is known. It is known that he did that based off text. It's known that he did that action. But how he did that action, the mode or manner to it, is unknown. How he's above the throne is unknown. And so Ahlul Sunnah, like Sheikh Muhammad ibn Salih al Uthaymin and Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah before him, and others from amongst the scholars, all clearly state that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is above his throne in a manner that is befitting his majesty. Not he's hovering over the throne, or he's reclining over the throne, or he's sitting over the throne, or whatever else the disingenuous Asha'ira attempt to attribute to Ahlul Sunnah, showing their shamelessness, their shamelessness, as they'll go so far as to blatantly lie against these scholars in order to defend their hizb. And there was other things that were within that video as well, like for instance, him claiming that Ahlul Sunnah believe that istiwa means istiqrar. But that's another point where he's being disingenuous. Why? Because it's known that scholars before Sheikh Muhammad ibn Salih al Uthaymin and Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahumullah, interpreted istiwa with that meaning. And in fact, in the Majmu'ah of Shaykh al-Islam, he quotes scholars that came before him that held that opinion. But he also quotes what is accepted with Ahlul Sunnah and what is the truth, that al-istiwa has the meaning of al-ulu and al-irtifa'. He also quotes those statements. So when Allah says istawa al-arsh, yani ala, or irtafa'a, yani he rose and or ascended over the throne. Shaykh al-Islam also quotes those as well. And that is a correct opinion concerning this particular mas'ala. So, but this individual, in his attempt to misrepresent Ahlul Sunnah, he omits a whole lot in an attempt to defend his hizb by any means necessary, even by deception. Even by deception. So, what is it to be said about a person that will openly lie in affairs of this manner? This type of individual is not to be relied on as it relates to quoting the understanding or the position of others. And Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala knows best. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.